Flipgrid is a free video response platform that has recently been acquired by Microsoft and is free for educators and students all over the world. Essentially, what you do is you post questions or prompts for your students, and then they respond to them in a digital format using video. There's some terminology that's going to be helpful for you as we begin to learn about Flipgrid. The first thing that we're going to need to talk about is a grid. A grid is your classroom or your learning community. You can have as many grids as you want, and a couple things to think about is, do you want to have multiple grids? So for you high school teachers, do you want to have one grid per class period you teach? Or do you want to only have one grid where all of the students in all of your classes can participate? So again, you can decide if you want to have one grid or multiple grids, and that depends upon how many videos you want in each of them. Inside each of your grid, you can pose topics or questions. These are the prompts that the students are going to read for instructions to find out what they want to do. As the year goes on, you might add more and more topics, and your grid will end up growing. So here you're going to see an example of my Flipgrid page, and I have 4 different grids. If I was to go in to click on one of these grids, once I enter in that grid, so now you're going to see I'm in Miss Kelly's Math Madness, and here's my grid details. When I scroll down, I will start seeing the different topics that I have. So if you started posting these for your students, they would come in, they would see a picture or video that you added to it, they would see some question or prompt, and then they would be able to scroll down and record their video response and post it for the class to see. By default, when you create a new grid, it's going to give you 2 different topics that are already there. The first one that you'll see is an introduction topic, and this is a nice go-to intro activity to get you and your students comfortable with using Flipgrid. So it's one that you might be interested in. It basically just asks them to introduce themselves, it welcomes them to the class grid, and it will have them include their first video. So this is a good way that you might want to get started. So we're going to now begin creating your own Flipgrid account. So to do this, you're going to open up any browser and you are going to go to flipgrid.com. Once you go to flipgrid.com, it is going to come to the home screen, at which point you're going to see a blue button that says Educator Sign Up. You're going to click on Educator Sign Up, and you are going to get a prompt that asks you if you want to sign up with a Google account or with a Microsoft account. Being that we're a Microsoft school, we use Office 365, we're going to select this one. And the nice thing about it is you don't need to create another username and password, as it's just going to use your Microsoft credentials. So click on Use Microsoft. And if you're prompted to put in your username and password, you're going to go ahead and do that. For those of you who might have previously signed up to have a Flipgrid account, when you're at flipgrid.com, you're just going to click on the educator login and you'll go through the same process. So you'll use your Office 365 username and password. If it had remembered your username and password, it might bring you directly in. So here I'll click on the Microsoft login to access my account. So once you enter into Flipgrid, it's going to bring you directly to your dashboard where you might see all of the grids you've made. For those of you who are new to Flipgrid, you aren't going to see anything in this section. So to begin creating our first grid, we're going to click the Add New Grid button. So remember, your grid is your classroom or your learning community. So you'll need to decide if you want one grid or multiple grids. For those at the high school level, a lot of people make multiple grids and they'll do one per course they teach or one per period of the day. So I'm going to name my grid and I'll call it Miss Kelly's art class. And I will scroll down, and now this is going to be an important step where it asks you to select a grid type. We're going to need to make sure that we select school email. Our students all have Office 365 usernames and passwords, so this is how it's going to let them log in without creating any new accounts. So we want to make sure we select school email, and we're then going to scroll down, and it's going to say create a flip code. This basically is the URL or the web address that you would share with your students, and they would be able to now access your grid. By default, it is going to create a unique code for you. So here it says Kelly2474. If I wanted to change that to customize it a little bit more, I could do that. So I could say Miss Kelly's art period 1. Once I finish doing that, if it's accepted, it is going to take it. If it's not accepted, meaning somebody else already has it, it will alert you to that. So go ahead and click the next button. This is the really important step here to be able to have your students easily access this. Because they're going to be using their school email, it's going to ask you to put in our domain. So this is going to be everything after the @ symbol. So for instance here, we are going to say at lynbrookschools.org. Take your time, make sure that this is spelled right. There's no typos in there, otherwise it will give you a hard time moving forward. Once you know that that's right, you're going to hit enter, and you'll see that at lynbrookschools.org is selected. You'll go ahead and click the next button, and it's going to tell you that your grid is ready. So I can decide to share this grid code with my students, and you're going to see it's flipgrid.com, and it's that unique code that I made it. And you can copy that link and you can share it to your OneNote notebook, to an Edmodo page, or to an email, and that will allow you to have your students enter it. When you click on go to your grid, it's going to now show you that your grid is up and ready for you to work with. Okay, so now that your grid is created, you're going to see your grid details. By default, there is going to be one topic in there, and it's a say hello on Flipgrid topic. We'll get more into this later, but that is essentially a really good way to get your students to start working in Flipgrid. So what we are going to want to do once your grid is made is we're going to want to go up to the little pencil icon and click on Edit Grid. This is just a good go-to step to make sure this is set up to all of your preferences. It will allow you to change the name of your grid if you need to. You will see your flip code here. That's how your students will enter your grid. You're going to see that we used our school email and that it's set up to show lynbrookschools.org. And then as you scroll down a little bit, these are some preferences you might want to select. So notifications is basically saying that you're going to receive email notifications when student videos are submitted. It's selected to daily here. You can decide however you want this to be set, but every time a student creates and submits a video, you're going to get an email. I'm going to click on the Never button. This button here, the download and share, means that it's going to allow students to download their video to their own computer after they're done. That's up to you. You can toggle that on and off. The captions, basically we'll put captions underneath it. It works, but sometimes there are typos. The active status lets you be able to decide when you want your users to be able to see your grid. Right now it's active, so when the students enter that code, they will be able to get right into my grid and see it. If I make it hidden, nobody will be able to see that until I go back and change it to active. As I scroll down a little more, this is where you can add an image, and it would be the banner for your grid. They have pre-selected images here that you can choose from. by just clicking through and seeing some different options. I'll go with this first one. And then at the bottom, after you've made all of those changes, you can click Update Grid. Now you'll see that my banner changed. It's called Miss Kelly's Art Class. It gives you the flip code here, okay? And it also gives you a different options to be able to share your code. You can copy this link right to any platform that you would like to share it with. Now that you've got your first grid created, it's going to be time to add our topics. So the next video is going to walk you through how to do that.